says concerning Yosef is the level of Geula, because they bring psukim to show that Yosef is the ring of Geula, Migal Chatoiv, Toiv is the level of Tzaddik, the level of Yosef, Yehuda is the idea of davening, and the Zohar says there has to be Smichas Geula L'Tfilah. That's the idea of Gal Yisrael being said immediately, right connected to Tfilah. We don't interrupt between Gal Yisrael and Shemoneh Esrei. And that's the same thing of the beginning of the Parsha, Vigash of Yehuda, that Yehuda approached Yosef. So we were explaining that seemingly it's the opposite direction. Yehuda's approach to Yosef means that Geula is higher than Tfilah. But in normal sense, we're going from Geula to Tfilah. Tfilah is the higher level. So he started explaining that there's first the level of Bittul. It begins with the Bittul of Yehuda, Vigash Elav Yehuda. That's the first three brachas of Shemoneh Esrei. And then he says, Vayomer bi Adoni, that B is Yud Beis, the 12 middle brachas, that after there's the Bittul of Yehuda, of the three first brachas of Shemoneh Esrei. So then there is brings down that it should be the Hamshacha that comes down from above to below. And in general, earlier in the Maimir was discussing a whole type of thing about what the aspects of Torah mitzvahs that are about halam al mata l'mayla, aspects of Torah mitzvahs that are mshacham al mayla l'mata, and he divided it between Torah versus mitzvahs, or Torah mitzvahs versus davening. Now he's going to bring this back to our parsha concerning last week's parsha, Hagashas Yehuda liYosef. Ois Daled, 5th page of the Maimer, page Tes, from last week. V'zeum gam inyan Hagashas Yehuda liYosef. This is all the idea of the approach of Yehuda to Yosef, just like we have at the beginning of Shemoneh Esrei. You have the Bittul, and then you draw down the brachas emtsois. You have the central brachas of bringing down from the Hashem's level of Adoni, the highest most level, down here below. The Hine Yosef Yehuda in Yonam Talmud, which is Malmayla Lamata, Maisa Malmata Lamayla. As we explained before, that Torah is coming from above, Haloi Dvari Ka'esh, it's Hashem's words. Mitzvahs is done from below, that's action, so it's below to above. And therefore, it's also these two things, Yosef and Yehuda, which represent learning and action, represents the above to below and below to above. Why is the idea of the Talmud show on below to the level of Yosef? Because it's the idea of increase. It's the idea of growth. That the idea of learning is about increasing. There's an idea of la foshala, to add, and so on. Like he's going to bring over here, ki Yosef lashon tesefes. Yosef is the word increase. Yosef Havayli ben Acher, like Rachel named him Yosef because Rachel wanted and davened with this name that Hashem should add an additional child. So we see that Yosef is about increase. Shubachinas Semeach is the level of growth, the level of growing things, vegetation, that they grow and they increase. That's the level of Torah learning. Torah is about increase and growth, la fashalah, and so on. It's not so much about bittul. Much enkin Yehuda sheinyana amido bittul, as opposed to Yehuda's idea of standing still and the level of bittul kaniskun la'el, like we mentioned earlier. Like it says also about Tamid Miledas, she stopped giving birth. It's a level of cessation, stopping bittul. Shubachinas hadoimim, that's the level of the inanimate. So that's again the idea of mitzvahs that are coming from below, dealing with the earth. And now he's going to connect this also with the different types of Batim Mikdash versus the Mishkan that had to do either with Yosef or had to do with the level of Yehuda. To note also from what's explained in Torah Oir, in the Maimer entitled Vigash Elav bin Koiros Batenu Arozim, that the ceiling of or the beams of our home is made out of cedar wood. That it's explained concerning that inyan. What does that pasuk in Shir Hashirim mean? Shezau gam achiluk bein hamishkan lebeis hamigdash. This is also the difference of the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash. Was it made, top of page Yud, the 6th page, was it made of wood, of tzemeach, of growing things, or was it made out of the daimim, the inanimate? That's the difference between the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash hoya me'avon, and the Beis Hamikdash was made out of stone. Shafil hagag hoya me'han. Even the roof of the Beis Hamikdash was made out of stone. V'cholshken aksolim, how much more so the walls. You couldn't have, it was even usher to have any type of visible wood, as we learn in Hilchos Beis HaBchira, in the building of the Beis Hamikdash. Shehem bechinas doimim. This is all the level of the inanimate. That is the level that we just now identified with Yehuda, the Mulmata Lamaila, the level of Maisa, the level of action. As opposed to the Mishkan was from cedar wood, the level of Bechinas HaTzemeach. That was the walls were made from growing things. And the covering, what was on top of what was the ceiling made out of? Kodesh Batein Arazim means the beams, meaning the walls in this case. And the ceiling was actually from goat's skin curtains and so on. The Beis Hamikdash, which we just said, was entirely made from daimim, which daimim is indicative of action, the level of below to above. That was located in Yerushalayim, in the section belonging to Yehuda. Mishkan Shiloi bechinas hatzemech bechelke shel Yosef, and the Mishkan of Shiloi. Once the Mishkan went into Eretz Yisrael, it was settled in the place of Shiloi. That was placed in the portion Shiloi. The city of Shiloi was in the area apportioned to the Shvatim of Yosef. Vegetation versus the inanimate things are similar to Torah study versus the level of action. And that is why we have these two things of Yehuda versus Yosef. And we're going to bring it into the classic machlokes or classic discussion in the Gemara about which one of these two are greater. Line 9, page 6. Concerning Torah study and action. Yesh pluktim Talmud Gadol Maisa Gadol. There's a dispute. Is Torah study greater, or is action of the mitzvahs greater? They took account, they took a vote, and they came to the conclusion the Gadol Talmud, that Talmud is greater. Amnam in the Talmud Gadol, the greatness, this idea that they came to the conclusion that Torah study is greater, which is also the idea, like we spoke about before, Milas Ham Shacham al Mail Lamata. Torah study is Hashem's words, it comes from above to below. So that advantage and that quality, Hurak Bezman Hazeh, that greatness of Torah study is only at present before Mashiach comes. Avalos and love a year Maisel God when Mashiach comes, action, the mites of the mitzvahs will be revealed as greater. Then it will become revealed the great advantage of action. It's in a way of avoid, in a way of going from below to above, like we mentioned before. That's the idea of action. The idea of mitzvahs is from below to above. And this type of difference between now versus the future is also to be found concerning Yosef and Yehuda, that their idea is learning and versus action, like we said. Yosef is about increasing growth, that's learning, it always increases. Action is just inanimate, it's doing, it's from below to above. Shebizman has God Lamiles Yosef. In these days, until Mashiach comes, the advantage and quality of Yosef is greater. And that's why in our parsha it says, or last week's Parshat says, Yehuda that it says that Yehuda approached Yosef and he asked Yosef to be mamshech within me, be Adoni. He had to nullify himself to Yosef to get the amshach. Inyan the aliyah, the Yehuda Yosef, it's the halah, it's the rising up of Yehuda to the level of Yosef. Omnam yet, so there should be able to be this elevation of Yehuda to Yosef. There's also a need for coming down amshacha from above that precedes this or ensures this. We know that prior to any inspiration that comes down here from below, there needs to be an inspiration from above. There needs to be Hashem giving us the koyach and the capability to be able to do our avodah. Like it's known concerning the pasuk that says, "Who preceded me, let me pay him." Hashem says, "Is there anyone that preceded me? Is there anyone that's able to do anything without me giving him first the opportunity to serve me?" So in other words, any service and any mitzvah and any good thing that I do is only thanks to the Eibishter. The Gemara speaks about it. On the side of the page, he brings down from the Medrash, the Gemara, that it's a whole giving of examples that it says, before I gave a person an neshama, he couldn't serve me. Before I gave him sheep to make wool, he couldn't have tzitzis. And before I gave him crops, he couldn't give truma meiser, and before, etc., etc., etc. So in other words, everything has to come first from the Eibishter. The same thing, before there could be this rusdol asata, the aliyah of Yehuda to Yosef, this elevation, there has to be dam shacha from above to below, this rusdol eila. This same idea that there needs to be a rusdol eila before there can be a rusdol asata, v'zeu inyan l'cha doidi l'kraskala. It says, "Go, my beloved, towards the kala." Even though the kala is from the word klois hanefesh, the expiring the soul, the drawing upwards, the wanting to unite with the mashpia, but beforehand there has to be doidi, my beloved, the chasen has to go towards the kala. So there should be able to be the ascent of the kala. There has to be first the revelation and the drawing down of my beloved, of the chasn. This is also in the Chadoidim Amarim, the Rebbe speaks about this, about how the mashpia has to reach out to the makabel and so on. That's also the idea of Geula being before davening. Vigash Elav Yehuda, we said Yehuda is subservient to Yosef. But in the davening process, before they can have the bittul, the rusdul asata of Yehuda, there needs to be preceded beforehand. There has to be the level of the level of Yosef, the Le'ela, that's enabling Yehuda to do that. That's why Gal Yisrael, Geula, which is representing Yosef, comes beforehand. That's the power and capability that comes from above. This Le'ela that has to precede this Rusla Satam. Only through the Gal Yisrael, through the Yosef, beforehand, can there be the elevation, last page of the Maimer, of davening of Yehuda approaching Yosef. Still in all, the expression is making close Geula to davening. When you use that expression, making close Geula to davening, it indicates that the Geula is only ancillary to davening. Davening is really the higher thing. You're bringing Geula to davening. That indicates the advantage of davening dafke. How come? Why is that so? The idea of Geula is only the empowerment for the elevation of davening. Aval tachlis hakavana, the ultimate goal, yaliyah the tefillah atzma, it's the elevation of the tefillah, of the bittul of davening, of Yehuda's bittul, the ma'isa mitzvahs, she'azi l'mayla madrega, then it's a much higher level, like it's going to be, like we say, when Mashiach comes, that will be revealed ma'isa gadol. This will become revealed in Mashiach's times. She'azi Yehuda l'mayla mi Yosef, when Mashiach comes, we know that Yehuda will be higher than Yosef. Just like we said before, that even though Talmud Gadol was the result of the vote, that's only now, but Mashiach comes, action is greater. Where do we see this? Like we see in the Haftarah. David, my servant, will be the leader of them forever. Forever indicates it'll be in a constant way without changing, not like in the times of the Beis HaMikdash and the first Beis HaMikdash and so on, or in the times of Mitzrayim where Yehuda had to approach Yosef and Yosef was over Yehuda. That's also the idea of Yehuda, like we said before, that Leah called him Yehuda because, not because, but when she stopped giving birth, the idea of stamid, amida means a solid standing, something that remains, something that is unchanged. And over here there's missing the conclusion of this mimer.